What if I told you that the life you're living right now was chosen by you, long before you were even born? Your parents, your challenges, even the people who push your buttons the most. Sounds crazy, right? But many spiritual traditions say that nothing in life happens by chance, that before every reincarnation, there's a kind of spiritual planning session, where your soul carefully chooses what it will experience, like a tailor-made script for its own evolution. But here's the question. Why would anyone choose a difficult life, one filled with pain, illness, or loss? And even more intriguing, if that's true, why don't we remember any of it? Why are we born with that mysterious veil of forgetfulness that erases who we once were? Surprisingly, science has started to take a closer look at these mysteries. There are documented cases that challenge skeptics, children who vividly recall past lives, people who describe the in-between state after near-death experiences, and ancient teachings that all say the same thing. Yes, you played a part in choosing your current life. So, are you truly the author of your own destiny? Today, we're diving deep into that question. Is it possible to choose your next life before reincarnating? If you enjoy topics like this, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and get ready, because what you're about to hear might completely change the way you understand life and death. According to some spiritual teachings, before we incarnate, the soul enters what could be called a planning room. There, surrounded by wise spiritual mentors, it looks over possible paths for its next life, like studying a map filled with crossroads, challenges, and opportunities. And in that still, sacred space, it makes one of its most important choices, who its parents will be. Not out of randomness, but out of purpose, out of growth, out of love in its most mysterious form. In this view, the pre-birth contract marks the beginning of our earthly journey. It's not about comfort, it's about evolution. Sometimes, a soul chooses difficult, distant, or even painful family situations, not as punishment, but as mirrors for the lessons it came to learn. Every reunion, every conflict, every connection is part of an ancient agreement, an emotional balancing act that stretches across lifetimes. But here's where science starts getting curious. What if there's something real behind all this? Researchers at universities, such as the University of Virginia, have studied cases where young children claim to have chosen their parents before birth. They describe bright rooms, beings of light, even conversations with their future families, and what's truly astonishing is how similar these descriptions are, even among children from completely different cultures. These stories challenge logic, yet they're consistent enough that science can't just dismiss them. Researchers call them pre-birth memories, experiences that occur before the brain is even fully developed. It's like remembering something that happened before the body existed. From a biological standpoint, that shouldn't be possible. And that's where the twist comes in. If there really is a plan before life, could everything we experience, even the pain, have been chosen by us? Maybe destiny isn't a script imposed on us, but a conscious agreement we forget the moment we're born. And perhaps that forgetfulness holds the biggest secret of all. But why do we have to forget everything before we're born? The answer might completely change how you see life. And that's exactly what we'll explore in the next topic. For decades, one name has fascinated both scientists and spiritual seekers alike. Dr. Ian Stevenson, a psychiatrist at the University of Virginia. He devoted more than 40 years of his life to studying something most researchers wouldn't even dare to mention: children who remember past lives. It wasn't about belief, it was about data. Real, verifiable cases, carefully documented with names, places, and dates that could often be confirmed in the real world. One of his most remarkable cases came from India, where a young boy claimed to have been a merchant killed in another town. He described the man's home, his children, and even the objects hidden in a specific drawer. When Stevenson investigated, everything was exactly as the boy had described, even the nickname he used in his previous life. Coincidence? Statistically, almost impossible. Over the years, Stevenson cataloged more than 3,000 similar cases, collected from cultures and religions across the world. The most fascinating detail? Most of these memories appeared between the ages of 2 and 5, before any external influence could shape the child's imagination. It was as if the mind was still between worlds, with the veil of forgetfulness slowly beginning to close. V. Stevenson never claimed to have proven reincarnation, but his evidence was strong enough to make the scientific community scratch its head. The details, the birthmarks matching fatal wounds from past lives, the accurate descriptions of places the children had never seen, all of it defied a purely rational explanation. When he finally published his findings, the impact was immediate. For some, Stevenson had opened a window between the visible and the invisible. For others, it was nothing more than a well-documented coincidence. But whether you believe it or not, his research continues to be cited today by anyone seeking to understand the mystery of consciousness beyond death. But if these memories are real, why would anyone choose to return to a life filled with pain, challenges, and loss? That's the next mystery, and the answer might surprise you. This might be the most unsettling question of all. Why would anyone choose to be born into pain, scarcity, or loneliness? If, before reincarnating, we truly have a say in our next life, why not choose an easy one? A life of comfort, health, and abundance? The answer, according to ancient spiritual traditions, is deep and completely counterintuitive. Souls, the masters say, don't seek comfort. They seek growth. A soul doesn't evolve when everything goes right. It evolves when it has to find light in the middle of chaos. In that sense, a difficult life isn't a punishment. It's a form of spiritual training, like a gym for the soul, where painful experiences forge the kind of inner strength that can't be built any other way. Think of someone born with a physical limitation who still inspires millions, or someone who's lost everything yet somehow finds meaning and purpose. These are lives that look heavy but radiate a rare kind of wisdom. In their stories, suffering isn't the ending, it's the doorway. And from this perspective, many of those souls knew exactly what they were signing up for before they came. In the spiritual plane, they say, there's a level of understanding we simply don't have here. What we call pain, up there, is seen as expansion. Souls plan meetings, separations, and breakthroughs, each one aligned with the lesson they came to experience. Sometimes, the greatest act of courage isn't facing your destiny. It's choosing it. But here's the most fascinating part. According to accounts from past life regressions and near-death experiences, no one is ever forced into anything. Free will is absolute. The soul chooses, even the challenges it fears most. It's as if it says to itself, this time, I want to learn forgiveness. This time, I want to understand unconditional love. But if everything is so perfectly planned, why do we forget it all when we're born? Could that forgetfulness be part of the plan too? Imagine if you remembered everything, every face, every loss, every mistake, and all the people you've loved across hundreds of lifetimes. It might sound beautiful, but it would also be unbearable. How could you live a new story if your heart was still carrying 1,000 unfinished chapters? That's why, according to many spiritual traditions, there exists what's called the veil of forgetfulness, a divine mechanism that temporarily erases the soul's memory so it can start fresh. From this perspective, forgetfulness isn't a punishment, it's protection. The human mind, fragile and limited, couldn't handle the weight of so many memories. The soul needs to forget in order to fully experience the present, without interference from the past. It's like an actor stepping into a new role. If he remembered every character he's ever played, he'd never be able to inhabit this one with authenticity. Some regression researchers claim that in altered states of consciousness, parts of this veil can be lifted. Patients describe vivid scenes from other eras, feeling emotions, and even physical pain connected to their past lives. What's fascinating is that, when they return to full awareness, many say they suddenly understand their current struggles better, as if forgetfulness were a pause, not a loss. In near-death experiences, people often report that when they cross over, all their lives flash before them in an instant. They describe a feeling of absolute clarity, as if they suddenly remember who they truly are. But when they come back to their bodies, that clarity fades away, like a dream dissolving the moment you wake up. And some believe the veil itself is an act of love, because remembering everything would be too easy. Living without remembering is the real test. Forgetting gives us the chance to choose again, to love without guarantees, to grow without knowing how the story ends. It's what makes every lifetime unique and authentic. But what about those moments when something seems to slip through that veil? That strange déjà vu, or that instant connection with someone you've just met. Maybe those are clues that not everything has been forgotten. Have you ever met someone for the first time, yet felt like you've known them forever? Or walked into a place you've never been and thought, I've been here before? Those strange moments of sudden familiarity are known as déjà vu, and according to some spiritual traditions, they're not just memory glitches. They're memories leaking through the veil of forgetfulness. From that perspective, déjà vu is like a small glitch in the matrix of the physical world, a sign that you're exactly where you're meant to be, following the script your soul helped write before you were born. It's as if the universe gives you a subtle wink and says, yes, this was part of the plan. That instant feeling of recognition isn't coincidence. It's a gentle confirmation that life is unfolding exactly as it should. The same goes for those instant connections, people who cross your path and spark something deeply familiar, even though you've never met them before. It could be love at first sight, an immediate friendship, or even an unexplained sense of discomfort. According to spiritual wisdom, these are reunions of old souls, companions who promised to find each other again in this life, each one helping the other grow. Science, of course, tries to explain déjà vu as a temporary misfire in the brain's memory system, a mix-up between what we're experiencing now and what the mind mistakes for a memory. Yet even some researchers admit there's something uncannily precise about these moments, something that seems to reach beyond biology alone. For those who believe in pre-birth planning, these moments are like hidden clues we left for ourselves before incarnating, gentle reminders that there's more to life than meets the eye. When you feel that mysterious sense of familiarity with no logical explanation, maybe it's your soul whispering, I remember, even if you don't. But what about the souls that seem so deeply connected that they transcend time and space? Could they be our soulmates? And were those encounters also planned before birth? The idea of soulmates runs much deeper than the romantic version we see in movies. From a spiritual perspective, a soulmate isn't just the missing half, but rather a consciousness vibrating on the same frequency, a companion chosen before birth to walk the path of growth alongside you. Together, these souls agree on meetings and separations, joys and trials, all designed with one purpose, to evolve. According to ancient traditions, souls recognize each other instantly in the spiritual realm. They know what experiences they need and, before reincarnating, make agreements that define their roles on Earth. Sometimes they come as lovers, other times as siblings, friends, teachers, or even adversaries. Because the bond between souls isn't limited to pleasant roles. It's about necessary lessons. In many regression stories, people describe reunions so intense they feel like they recognize the other person with just a glance. It's as if the heart remembers what the mind has forgotten. That sudden recognition, spiritual scholars say, is the echo of an ancient agreement, a silent promise made in a time before time. But what few realize is that meeting a soulmate doesn't always mean living a happily ever after. Many of these relationships are challenging by design, meant to spark growth, healing, and forgiveness. They act as mirrors, forcing us to look within and confront what still needs to be transformed. It's love, yes, but love in its most mature form, the kind that frees, not the kind that binds. Science, of course, doesn't acknowledge spiritual contracts. It speaks of chemistry, compatibility, and instinct. Yet anyone who has experienced a connection so profound that it defies logic knows there's something more, something that transcends lifetimes, centuries, and bodies, something that continues even when the story seems to end. But what about the talents, gifts, and passions we seem to be born with? Could those, too, be choices made before we incarnate, part of that same spiritual plan? Have you ever wondered why some people seem to be born with extraordinary gifts? Children who play the piano like prodigies, artists who draw flawlessly from a young age, or people who just know how to do something they've never learned. In spirituality, none of this is random. These are memories of the soul, fragments of experiences gathered over many lifetimes, and often, choices made before birth. According to esoteric traditions, before reincarnating, each soul reviews what it has learned and what it still wishes to develop. In that moment, it chooses the talents and abilities that will serve as tools to fulfill its mission on Earth. A gift isn't a privilege, It's a spiritual responsibility. It carries the purpose of helping not only the one who possesses it, but also the world around them. That's why, when we follow our true calling, we feel a different kind of energy, as if we're doing exactly what we were born to do. The soul vibrates, recognizes the path, and expands. It's not luck or coincidence, it's memory in motion. Science tries to explain these phenomena through genetics and environment, but even researchers admit that some cases defy logic, like a 3-year-old who plays Beethoven by ear, or someone who paints Renaissance-style art without ever having studied. The knowledge seems to come from somewhere else, a place the rational mind has yet to reach. And what's even more fascinating is that, according to spiritual scholars, even our forgotten gifts are part of the plan. Sometimes we live an entire lifetime without unlocking all the potential we chose, and that, too, is part of the learning. Because talent isn't just about what we do well, it's about what helps us remember who we truly are. But if we choose our talents and even the people who cross our path, how much real freedom do we actually have? Do we truly have free will? Or are we just following a script we wrote before we were born? Between destiny and free will lies a delicate, almost invisible balance, the exact space where life truly happens. On one side, destiny seems to outline our paths, encounters, and inevitable experiences. On the other, free will gives us the power to choose how we respond to them. And it's precisely within this dance, between what was planned and what is lived, that the soul evolves. Spiritual traditions teach that before we're born, each soul designs a life plan with key milestones it wishes to experience, loves, challenges, lessons, and even moments of pain. But this plan isn't a rigid script. It's more like a map with countless possible routes. Free will is the compass that decides which road to take within that map. Think of it as a journey. The final destination might be set, but the route is up to you. You can take shortcuts, detours, or even wander in circles, but one way or another, you'll still end up where you're meant to be. That's how spirituality describes life. A perfect balance between what we chose before and what we choose now. Science, while it doesn't speak of the soul, recognizes something similar when studying human behavior. Researchers talk about genetic predispositions and environmental influences, but also about the power of choice, the ability to transform circumstances through awareness. It's as if even biology concedes that destiny might provide the stage, but the script is written in real time. When we follow what we call intuition, perhaps we're actually hearing the echo of that original plan, a subtle reminder that something greater is guiding our steps. Every decision, no matter how small, could be a reunion with the purpose we outlined long ago, before we were born. But what happens when the soul nearly crosses that boundary, when it touches the edge between life and death? What do near-death experiences reveal about the process of choosing our next life? Some say death isn't the end, it's simply a change of state. And perhaps no one has described that transition better than those who have stood between two worlds, people who've had near-death experiences. Across cultures, religions, and continents, their stories share something strikingly similar: the feeling of remembering who they truly are, and of understanding why they came to Earth in the first place. During these episodes, many describe leaving their bodies and watching everything from above with perfect clarity and calm. Then they pass through a tunnel of light and encounter luminous beings radiating unconditional love. In that state, they say, their entire life flashes before their eyes, not as judgment, but as understanding. It's like watching a movie of their own existence while feeling, from both sides, the emotional impact of every choice they made. But the most intriguing part comes next, when these people describe what happens after that review, a space of pure consciousness, where they participate in the planning of a new incarnation. There, they revisit the lessons they've learned, what still needs to be developed, and which future experiences might help them evolve. Some even claim they chose to return voluntarily, to finish what they had left incomplete. Serious researchers, such as Dr. Raymond Moody and Dr. Bruce Grayson, have collected thousands of these accounts. While they stop short of calling them proof of reincarnation, they acknowledge that the patterns are far too consistent to dismiss. The feelings of peace, the disappearance of fear around death, and the deep sense of renewed purpose upon returning are elements that appear in nearly every case. For those who've lived through it, Death stops being the opposite of life. It becomes part of the same continuum. And perhaps the most powerful insight of all is this. According to these reports, no one is ever forced to return. Each soul chooses, consciously and lovingly, the next chapter it wishes to live. Not as punishment, but as an act of growth. But do all spiritual traditions share this same understanding? Do Buddhism, Spiritism, and Hinduism all agree that we play a part in choosing our next life? In the final topic, you'll see that despite their differences, these philosophies meet at a single, profound point. Despite their cultural, ritualistic, and linguistic differences, there's something truly remarkable that connects the world's great spiritual traditions: the belief that the soul actively participates in choosing its own life. Buddhism, Spiritism, and Hinduism, three distinct paths that intersect at one essential truth. Life isn't a punishment, it's a conscious project. In Buddhism, we find the teachings of karma and rebirth. Every action, thought, and intention leaves an energetic imprint that shapes future experiences. It's not about punishment. It's about cause and effect, a continuous cycle of learning in which the spirit returns to earth until it reaches enlightenment. The soul, therefore, chooses the ideal circumstances for its evolution, guided by the wisdom it has gathered through many lifetimes. In Hinduism, life is seen as part of the vast cosmic play of samsara. Before incarnating, the soul, Atman, decides, with divine guidance, which lessons it needs to live in order to move closer to spiritual liberation, moksha. Everything that happens to us is part of a perfect balance, a dance between destiny and free will, directed by the soul's own consciousness. Spiritism, as codified by Allan Kardec, goes even further, offering detailed descriptions of the reincarnational planning process. According to this view, in the spiritual realm, each soul chooses its family, its trials, and even its life mission, always guided by mentors who help it understand the purpose behind each decision. Life, then, ceases to be a random event and becomes an act of love and spiritual responsibility. Despite their differences in language and symbolism, all these traditions converge on one powerful truth: we are co-authors of our own existence. When understood through this lens, suffering is no longer punishment. It becomes a tool for expansion. The soul is not a victim of destiny. It's the artist, painting every detail of its journey with freedom and intention. But what about you? Have you ever wondered what you might have chosen before you were born? What your soul came here to learn? Because, in the end, perhaps the greatest spiritual awakening is realizing that you've always been in control. If everything we experience was chosen by us, every pain, every encounter, every victory, then maybe life isn't a test at all. Maybe it's an act of remembrance. Remembering who we are. Remembering why we came. Remembering that behind the chaos, there's an invisible purpose, one that we designed before we were born. Perhaps the greatest answers aren't in the future, or in books, but deep within us, in the intuitions that persist, the signs that repeat, the coincidences that feel like whispers from something greater. The soul is always speaking. We just have to learn how to listen. Through this lens, reincarnation stops being a distant mystery and becomes a divine opportunity. The chance to rewrite old stories, to heal what was left unfinished, to choose again, with more awareness, more love, and less fear. So next time something feels unbearably hard, remember this. Maybe you chose it, not to suffer, but to transform. Because every challenge is a silent reminder that you are far more than a body. You are an eternal consciousness, always expanding. And now I want to ask you, what do you feel you chose before you were born? What lesson is your soul trying to teach you in this lifetime? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if this reflection resonated with you, make sure to like the video, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell. Because spiritual awakening begins when you realize that life doesn't happen to you. It happens for you.